Welcome to the VHS Graveyard. Space is limited, so be sure to secure your plot today.
So, we're back again like we never left, even though we were never here before. In the VHS Graveyard, 1,000 VHS strong, probably another 600 to 700 pieces of media.
DVDs, movies, games, all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of stuff, from the late 70s to the early 2000s, I would say. It's just sort of a create space where a couple of nerds are going to regale you with stories of VHS that they found worth your time. Mm-hmm. And we're going to start it off with a film called LifeForce. Everything that we do is going to be based on a VHS copy. This is an old Blockbuster version where the labels have been stripped off and rewritten.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is a thing of beauty. Beautiful, beautiful slipcase art, which will get you a little something there, a little something, something. And from the back of the box, here we go. LifeForce. In the static outer limits of space, a silent terror awaits its next victim. A space exploration to examine Halley's Comet uncovers an alien spacecraft whose occupants carry a deadly secret. 3 humanoid forms encased in crystal sarcophagi hover in the comet's tail. These 3 spacelings need humans to survive. In vampire-like fashion, they murder their prey, seducing their victims, then sucking the life out of them, leaving withered shells of human forms. When the astronauts return to Earth, they unknowingly bring along their alien counterparts and systemically trigger a chain of terror impossible to stop. LifeForce. In the blink of an eye, the terror begins. Now, Manly Hanley, does that make you want to watch this film?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Just as an interesting exercise, and the futility of trying to get real representations of IMDb. Why don't you read the synopsis from IMDb?
Right. A race of space vampires arrives in London and infects the populace, beginning an apocalyptic descent into chaos. Trash. That's what it makes me think of, is just trash.
I probably wouldn't watch that movie.
No, me neither. You mean it? Nope, not at all. Not at all.
So the film is, the writers are Colin Wilson, Dan O'Bannon, and Don Jacoby. Mm-hmm. Dan O'Bannon's a guy that you're going to hear from a lot on this podcast because he happens to be involved in either acting or writing or directing in lots of films that I seem to like. This film came out in 1985, and I did in fact see it at Eastgate Cinemas in Albemarle, North Carolina.
Awesome.
With my good friend, Todd A. Britt. I don't imagine you saw this in the theater, did you?
No, I just saw it last night.
Right, and you saw the beautiful VHS rip that I was able to transfer to you.
It was beautiful. It was actually nice. I actually didn't mind it. I like the quality.
It was like you were watching a VHS tape on a VHS player without the VHS player, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I've seen it plenty of times on my VHS copy. I have multiple copies of it. But this time for this review, I actually watched the HD version of it on Vudu. That's kind of my jam now. If I really care about a film and being able to see it in its highest quality, I will always, purchase it at the right time, as economically as possible, on Vudu.com. And you never can scratch those. Nope. You can't break those in an old VCR. Mm-hmm. So it's a good way to go. As far as the HD version of this, the effects hold up, and I think one of the things that sets this film apart from a relatively original take on the vampire mythos, is that the practical effects are genius level. Yes. At the time, they actually hold up today, and that's saying something in the age of shows like Tales from the Crypt, where they have dedicated advanced robotic creatures. They can make dinosaurs.
Photoreal CG, everything. This film had very little CG, but used perfectly in concert with practical makeups, and to me that made it quite special. I felt like it was. It's an outlier. It's an outlier in that it's such a goofy concept and looks so low budget, but yet conversely it has some of the most high-tech puppetry that you're ever going to see. And when I saw the VHS version, because I saw a VHS rip of it, honestly the quality of it, even though it was low, it added a lot to it. And I mean, like you said, it wasn't probably, maybe the effects weren't lower quality based on that, but I will say that the lower quality rip of this added a lot more vibe to the matte paintings, the miniatures, the puppets, and like you said, even the early, I don't even know if it would be CG. Maybe they even did, because I know early days they wouldn't actually do CG, and they'd actually do they'd hand draw lightning.
You might be right about that.
I don't know, but I know, I mean,
And I think there's even a stop motion moment at the very end. I could be wrong. I couldn't quite figure out what. I couldn't look at the frame rate to see, but it looked a little janky. It could have been a puppet. But at the very end, there's a vampire that got revealed, and it looked like it was stop motion. But either way, I mean, it's great looks. Yeah.
I love stop motion, and there's definitely stop motion to come on this podcast. Many of my favorite films involve it. It's actually a technology I even dabble with myself, just for fun. In concert with your CG that you can accomplish on this laptop now, you can get some really good results, with CG and homemade puppetry.
Oh yeah.
Of course, at the time, they didn't have these parts. They had to be machined for this, which makes it all the more impressive. That's where all their budget went. I don't know what the budget was, but it certainly wasn't spent on the sets, which were very, very bare and stark.
Well, I think the first set was really nice on the spaceship. I thought that was actually, and when they went to the alien ship of on Halley's Comet, I thought that was really cool.
Well, let's get into the story a little bit and how it's the setup. The setup is it starts off with a narration and a little bit of on-screen, text that tells you that a joint UK-US space mission is heading out to study Halley's Comet. When they get there, they find a craft that is 150 miles long.
Huge.
And now, when they start getting into specifics, they sort of paint themselves into some corners, which they're gaffes. Like later on, they'll contradict themselves. For example, they said they were going into the head of the vessel, which was 2 miles tall. It was like sort of a spermatoa or something, like a tadpole with a giant head and a long tail. When they showed it on the graphic. And it was rudimentary graphics at best. The best a computer could do, I guess. Nobody will ever need more than 2 megabytes of memory.
Definitely not.
But so they go into it, and they did this really cool set design where it was a lot of bulbous pods, kind of nebulous in the distance, and the astronauts floating perfectly straight, hanging like they were hung by an eye hook, floating perfectly straight. And occasionally you'd have the little sound effect to imply they had jets, like, but you would never see any jets.
Didn't even catch that,
Yeah, so they're going into the head of the vessel, and they see all these pods, and then they start seeing these. And I think in my mind's eye, I gotta say, 2 miles is way bigger than 2 miles tall is way dang bigger than what you saw on screen. It was more like 200 feet, right? But they get in there, and there's these floating bat-like humanoid creatures, but like if you could imagine just a vampire bat with arms and legs and big old wings, and they're all mummified and floating. So the Colonel, what was his name?
Oh, see, I can't remember now.
Colonel Carlson, played by Steve Rosback. Colonel Carlson, he's a bit of a kind of not exactly a hothead, but real like prone to action before thinking. It seems like he's like, let's go over there and grab those guys, And he goes over there and he grabs one. He goes up to the first creature and grabs it, breaks his finger off. Now, just the way my mind works, I'm a completist. I can't stand to get my toys broken. I hate when my action figures get the fingers snapped off. So I would have never snapped the finger off. I'd have been super ginger with it, and very careful. But he snaps the finger right off and didn't even seem to bother him because he's like, oh, there's thousands of other these specimens. But then he goes, oh, it's completely desiccated or whatever, been open to space, etc. So it's a complete mummy type form with no moisture. Then he goes, let's bag it up. Now, and me, this is a little quirk, but me, had I been Colonel Carson, I'd been like, okay, we already effed this one up. Let's go over and get a fresh one that has all of his fingers. And then if you watch later in the movie, when this creature, of course, of course he's going to come back to life. He has all his fingers. And I'm like, dudes, come on. That was easily avoidable. Who's your continuity director, right? But basically, then there's a signal. There's some movement with the ship, and then there's a signal.
Light.
They sort of build some tension there because you think something's going to happen. But basically, it's just part of the outer ship opens up. The people outside start freaking out. Hey, it's moving, and he sort of shouts in the back and forth. Let me know if anything else changes. And then there's a signal coming from a command center.
Right.
And they float perfectly vertically
inside
into that. And what do they find?
3 people.
Humanoids.
Humanoid people. And the men seem very enthralled by the woman. Extremely enthralled.
I wonder why that could be.
I don't know. Maybe they just haven't had enough action in space.
If I'm being real and honest, the fact that there's this gorgeous Matilda May, she was quite young at the time. I mean, she's probably 19 or 18 when this was shot. And she has no issues with on-screen nudity, let's just say that.
None of them do.
The sheer volume of full frontal, I mean, like if Roger Corman is to be believed, I mean, this film should have had 3 sequels, but it didn't, thankfully. But yeah, I remember walking away from this film thinking this is my new favorite movie, but maybe not for the content other than all of the Space Girl scene. And her character is called Space Girl, which I always dug that, and I thought, man, that'd be a great name for a band.
Yeah.
Speaking of bands, let's talk about how we our two spheres of influence sort of bumped and created the VHS Graveyard real quick.
Okay.
One day I'm down at our business, and this tall, lanky, red-headed cat walks in, and he's like, "Hey, you need to find out about recording with this guy that you record with up there." I said, "Sure, I'll tell you everything." And like 30 minutes later, we're up here going through my YouTube channel, and I'm looking at his YouTube channel. And I'm like, "This is weird. This is like a slightly more active version of my YouTube channel." I mean, in that, just so quirky and content just ranging, like somebody just shot a shotgun of paintball pellets at a wall at close proximity, and just everywhere it splatters, you have a video or six.
Yep.
You know,
six. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have some of these updates, and then you have these self-made. Of course, both of us being musicians and composers and super active in that, we immediately were just. I remember at the time it was so ironic because I was like, "Yeah, well, I got this band together right now, and we don't have a keyboard player. Can you play a keyboard or at least a little bit?" He's like, "Oh, sure, I can play a little." What he really meant was he's really good.
I can play only a little.
Well, you said the same thing about your drums, and the first song we recorded in the studio, and the drums, you actually nailed it the first time, and insisted on doing a second take. I was like, man, I can't afford the second take. You nailed it the first time, but I digress. So we ended up, collaborating on music and other things, and this just became the natural extension because we both have like a kind of an obsession with movies, and I've watched some of your reviews on your Manly Hanley channel, and they were good. And I watched a documentary you did on like an album that you made in 2 years, and it's like it's total cinema verite, I guess you'd say. But I really liked it. And then I started watching your Saturday jam sessions where you going back to when you could barely play guitar, which was, I just thought, God bless him for putting this out here, because like only a guy like me that went through the same struggles, although you're way more accomplished than me, I appreciated that. And I appreciated like the self-belief of putting something of yourself out there, knowing that it's not good, but it's going to be good, and there's going to come a time when you're going to be glad that you had this. So that's why I'm such a freak about recording all of our making ofs and whatnot. But I digress. We got here. Here's where we got, and you were a filmmaker almost like completely on your own. It seemed like I was a filmmaker in the context of working with some other people, but eventually, I made my own things. I've made my own music videos. You've made your own music videos. I make digital art, you make digital art, so confluence of influences sort of at a crossroads brought us together to make this. So I don't know why we're doing this right in the middle of a review. Right. Probably because this is our second take on episode 1, but because one of us forgot to hit the record button.
I did.
Classic.
I did.
Classic Manly Hanley.
Yep.
Yes. So anyway, long story short, I'll be referring to myself as Brento. My name is Brent Bowers. I'm just a regular guy and husband, father, granddad. And then the contrast here is that you are quite the youngster, as it were, and you're like a single dude with your guitars, I guess, are your children.
Yeah, that's me. You can call me Manly Hanley. My technical name is Harrison. But my musical stuff, I've been me and Brent been working on music stuff, but like you said, I've been doing that for a while on my own. The quality is varying, as is my video quality on YouTube is varying. But that's kind of why we kind of started working together. It's very similar interests. Yeah.
Very much a man in the arena concept as far as the varying quality, because I feel like hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard. But also that old saying, like a jack of all trades is a master of none. The full saying is actually, but still better than a master of one.
Well, that's so nice of you.
You see what I mean? Like if you put a lot out there, you have you've added to the collective, the artistic collective. I remember really hammering that John Carpenter film. Is it John Carpenter? Dark Star?
Maybe. Yeah.
It could be. I hated that film. It was a student project, and it's kind of a space. It presents itself as a sci-fi.
John Carpenter. Yeah.
But it's more of a comedy, and it started as a student film. A lot of people really love it, but I hated it. And at the time, I was like, this film has no value, and it should have never been made. And like a good buddy of mine, Robert Fillion, great filmmaker too, by the way, pointed out, it should have been made because it exists.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I pondered on that, and I was like, darn, like that's true. That is true. So LifeForce made a lot of young boys happy, and I'm sure it was an abysmal failure at the box office.
Came out the same time as Cocoon did. Well, and I think that might be part of the reason why.
Quite a difference in the budget between those two films, I would say.
Yes.
And even being a genre guy, it's not as good of a film as Cocoon. I'll admit that. But I don't. Whenever I rewatched Cocoon, I think I saw that in the cinema. I never rewatched it. So this film I've rewatched again, a few obvious reasons, but I've rewatched it at least 3 times since seeing it in the theater back in the day, and back in 1985 in Albemarle, thinking I hope they make more films like this. But they never did, and that's kind of like another thing that. So if you conjure, so behind us today on the TV here, we're watching my VHS copy of Jack Palance's Dracula. We may get into this one a little bit later. This one's pretty easy to find online, at least to download. But one of my favorite Draculas, probably the most menacing Dracula. I know that Christopher Lee is a lot of people's favorites, and I do like him as Dracula. But boy, Jack Palance just brought a real sinister element to it. You know, when he has that real evil grin, it just works perfect with the fangs. So we're kind of watching my ratty VHS copy of that right here, and look at that shot right there, Harrison. Very classic imagery for the word vampire, and this is anything but classic imagery for vampire. Everything about it. So it's based on a book called Space Vampires?
Yes, just Space Vampires. Yeah.
I would love to find that book. I don't know if it's available anywhere, but I did look on Audible and it wasn't there. Of course, you know what happens is if it's a film, it'll be like a LifeForce adaptation.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not interested in that. Yeah. Space Vampires. Space Vampires book. Let's see if it's out there. The Space Vampires. It actually is. Wow. You can buy that actual book on Amazon for about $13.78.
Not bad.
Check that out.
It's not available in any other.
It's
format,
available on
audio.
Kindle, which is Kindle, hardcover, and paperback.
Okay.
And there's used. That was a used version actually, but the Kindle version, I might have to check out.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, because I wonder if it's anything similar to the vibe of it at all. You know. I mean,
I feel like it's an adaptation because, like,
really?
The excerpt says, when Captain Carlson entered the vast derelict spaceship, he was shaken by the discovery of its immobilized humanoid passengers. See, now this is taking even a different tack than the IMDb or the box. Later, after 3 of the strange aliens had been transported to Earth, his foreboding was more than justified. I mean, he basically went AWOL, and the ship was gutted. They basically recovered the 3 humanoids and only bodies. I can't remember how he actually showed back up, but
I think he escaped out of some kind of pod.
The escape pod. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So and that particular scenario right there is played out in how many sci-fi movies?
Yeah.
You know, where only one member of the crew survives, and he's got the alien.
And you won't believe me if I told you.
Right. But a book by Colin Wilson. He also was involved in the screenplay. So
I don't know. The only thing about maybe the book takes more time, but I feel like that, like, even though I like a lot of aspects of it, and I mentioned it, like, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but like it has a lot of aspects of Alien, at least the beginning. It's almost like 3 different films almost for me. It's like Alien at the beginning, and then like Invasion of the Body Snatchers when the infection starts, and then when the infections kind of like spread, it's like a zombie movie. It feels like a lot of different things. So I wonder if the book is anything similar to that, and I would hope it also takes more time with things, because I felt like it kind of jumped the ship at a certain point in certain areas, at least. What do you think?
Was that OSHA that expanded the inspections, or sorry? No, I actually, you bring a good point, because I was going to say one of my favorite parts of the film, and like you said, it was a film unto itself, was everything that took place in space was like a straight sci-fi.
I love that,
and I found myself really digging that part.
Same.
Even though they didn't have the budget.
Yeah,
you know, like
keep going.
150 mile long ship with a 2 mile high.
Yeah.
That's not what the visuals said.
Yeah.
But the visuals said trying to make a cool sci-fi
movie. It was trying,
movie.
and I thought it did good.
The vertical flight of the astronauts, I don't know, that still sticks with me. You know, the Minerva engine, which they explained away, the guy's not floating in their ship.
And that's
it's the new Minerva engine, which uses constant acceleration to create artificial gravity. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Don't have to have our astronauts floating. How much money have we just saved?
And
Cha-ching.
Yeah, and that's the thing about a lot of movies that maybe not even really any movie that can kind of get in a problem is, you know, people want to be. Some people say, "Oh, I want to understand what it means," but really, you kind of want to. There's a little bit of mystery, because I mean, I wrote down a list of things that, like, right in the middle of the movie, it started explaining way too many things. So, for example, again, spoilers, don't there's a brain connection where he can see what the other lady sees, the colonel guy. She can switch bodies apparently. She now doesn't want to kill everybody. She just wants to suck a little bit of their life force. And somehow there are two minds in the same body, so they can coexist. So there's two consciousnesses in the same body. They're vampires, which wasn't explained until like the hour mark, really. And the fact that like, but then there was a statement at the very last 2 minutes where she said, "Oh, by the way, you're one of us too." And I'm like, he was and it's like, and there's so that's the thing that a lot of these movies I feel like they can get away with themselves by trying to explain too much. There's a beauty in mystery, you know, and that's the thing that I feel like some movies kind of lose track of.
That's a great point. Did I drop the spoiler warning? Because we just spoiled the snot out of this.
I think we did.
Yeah,
I said it right before I started talking.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah.
You know, this was called by the Chicago Tribune this was called a new slant on horror, and I have to say it was exactly that. Everything you said was accurate. I think Dan O'Bannon is sort of known as a screenwriter to go a little far in the explaining things direction, but I just recently watched that film there, the first one on your list there. It's Dead and Buried. You can hold up to the camera there. Man, that's an incredible film, and it has a completely original premise. It's hard to find those, but once again, that's a Dan O'Bannon script, I believe. I think he's actually in that as well, as one of the townspeople. Mm-hmm. But at the end of it, it does get a little heavy on the explanation. And I was like, gosh, although that one's so crazy, no explanation could really explain it. And there are fairly obvious plot holes, but it has to do with just a magical immortality. But you have to die violently to get the immortality. So
interesting. Okay.
We got to get into that one first. That one is one of a kind. And again, just like LifeForce, it's an outlier. In fact, most of these films here are outliers in that they are in a genre that you think you know what it is, but you don't really. Like Dead Alive, for example, it's a zombie film, but it's not a zombie film. It's crazy.
That's like LifeForce. It's technically a vampire film, but it's not. Not anyway.
Absolutely. Gosh, I mean, I got to say that this one is one that I think deserved any attention that we can give to it. Mm-hmm. And if you're a fan of vampire films or sci-fi films, there's no way you watch this movie and not go, man, I'm glad I checked that out.
Yeah, and I will say I'm not a fan of vampire films, generally speaking. The only one that I can really care for is I'm forgetting the name of it. Gary Oldman's in it.
Dracula.
Yeah, that one.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I don't know why. I love that movie, but like generally speaking, like just vampires don't interest me. But for me, the reason why I like this is because there was, like you said, there's a lot of sci-fi elements in it, and that hooked me in the beginning, and that's a really good hook at the beginning, and it doesn't really. I mentioned this. I thought about this, and I was like, because I was imagining that maybe something to add a little bit to the mystique was maybe not even use the word vampire, but use the word succubi, which is like a I don't remember what the exact lore is, but basically it's just this feminine, like, I don't even know if it's a spirit or whatever, but like in old mythology and stuff, where it's like a feminine thing that would seduce men, which is really all she's doing, realistically speaking. And I feel like that would have added a little bit more to the mystique, but I mean, maybe not growing up in the 80s, I don't know if vampires were a big deal. Maybe, and that was like a huge popular thing, but
it was extremely popular.
See, so yeah.
It was extremely popular.
So maybe that's why they chose that.
So you were only around for the glittery, wussified vampires, like in, what's that horrible show that they have so many sequels to? Edward and Bella.
Twilight?
Lord Jesus. Save us.
I've watched a few of those.
Yeah, I had to.
They're not the worst thing I've ever experienced.
No, they're not the worst thing I've ever experienced, but they're down there. But my daughter was the right age, and those films were marketed to her, so I took her to see those. And freaking glittering vampires, man, I just feel like it just kind of took the balls away from the whole vampirism mythos. But I tend to like the ones that are more like vampires, and there's a bunch of books I could recommend. We should do a vampire special, actually. There's a bunch of books that I think get it really, really right, because like I think the character arc for anybody that chooses to become a vampire is that it's not the life that you think it is. Immortality comes with a price. You don't get to just be yourself forever and do what you want. You're basically a slave to these desires. And in lots of cases, that character is sort of portrayed as a kind of a charming, smart guy who gets intelligent over time from life experience, right? Like if you or me or what we are, but if we had 2,000 years of life experience, we'd be a whole lot smarter.
Yes.
Obviously. But in this case, like all that's your human persona is ripped away, and you're basically just a beast feeding a hunger, you know, like a hungry grizzly bear or something, you know, or a vampire bat, if you will. Hey, let's talk about the Dr. Armstrong character, played by a young, full head of hair having Patrick Stewart, pre Jean-Luc Picard. Like that's a trip to me to watch now. I don't know if you ever got into Star Trek.
Not really, but
I watched every single episode.
Really?
Except for all the new Picards, they're not really to my liking. I won't get into why, because I don't want to slam anything Star Trek. I'm glad they're trying to make Star Trek now, whatever they're making. I don't love the new shows, but man, the Next Generation, I've seen it. I was living in Japan. People, this Canadian that I work with, people would ship him boxes where they would just record the show with the commercials, and when you're starved for English speaking content, man, that's a great day. Go in there and bomb a couple people and watch 6 episodes with all the commercials during the day. So I have Star Trek is near and dear to me, but he's a great actor in anything really. Even when he has terrible material like with the new show, he's still a certain level he doesn't fall below.
Yeah.
He's in this, and actually the exploding blood hologram or whatever.
That was freaky. Yeah, I like that.
I still don't know how they did that. The visual effects. Well, we'll call them visual effects. The special makeup effects is what they used to call them. Those hold up so well in this film, and I guess I would just have to say, like, on a scale of 1 to 5 tombstones, what would you give this in the VHS Graveyard?
Well, considering this is the first one, and I don't know the threshold of good and bad yet, I'd give it 3 right now. I'm content. I like it.
I think
there's
that's
some
fair.
reservations.
I think that's fair.
Like
I would probably give it like a 3.5. So we'll just
we can do decimal points.
We'll just average that out to 3.25 tombstones in the VHS Graveyard.
Okay.
And we'll recommend that you guys check out whatever version. The great thing about LifeForce is that it is one of these rare-ish VHSs, but you can for sure find it on voodoo.com, and there's plenty of places you can watch it online. So do yourself a favor and check that out. And then as far as what's next on VHS Graveyard, what are you feeling there, Manly Hanley?
I think I want to go more horror. I want to go more. We
can certainly do that.
Because there's aspects of horror in this, but even more maybe.
We can certainly do that. And is there any particular genre that thrills you to move into? Did you ever watch any of the Full Moon films, by the way?
No.
Like, so you never watched anything like Dr. Mordred with the super sweet video zones at the end of them, like a video magazine?
Interesting. No.
They produced so many, they were always trying to hype the next thing.
Oh yeah.
Rated R or restricted. That would be a good one to go to. We will, pardon me, coughing up a little space vampire there. We will put our heads together, proverbially speaking, and figure out what's next. But there's so many. Well, I have a ton right here that, of course, the great thing that gets me jazzed up about doing a new episode of the VHS Graveyard is I can walk over to this wall, which I'll share an image of, and I can just literally stand there and just like stare into oblivion, and my eyesight is like probably 500 tapes, and I'll just like go, oh, that catches my eye. Like the other day, Mouth of Madness. Hey,
that's the one that we could try.
Yeah, the Mouth of Madness stars Sam Neill. That is a truly scary movie. Are you familiar with Event Horizon, by the way?
I am. I've seen scenes, and I'm scared.
Honestly, that might be the scariest sci-fi horror that I have ever seen, and that's one that still scares me on rewatch. Which is there's a lot of like real fast cut imagery in that with hell scenes that I think are probably done with miniatures, but it looks so real.
Interesting,
I would love to get into miniatures and maybe do some skits and whatnot. But there'll be elements to this show that expand it from just two nerds talking, I hope, at some point. And we're going to get a few of these in the bag, and then we'll be launching. For certain it will be out by Halloween of 2022.
Oh yeah.
And in full force on iTunes and Spotify, I hope. Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for joining me in this discussion of LifeForce. And any closing remarks?
Overall, like you said, anything you can think about, any way you can find to stream this or watch this. I actually prefer the VHS. Even though I haven't watched the full one, I actually kind of like the feeling that the VHS gave.
How did you feel about the VHS transfer of? You actually watched the physical VHS of Mouth of Madness.
Technically, yeah.
I can't remember how good that one looks.
It looked nice.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it looked pretty good.
Yeah, it's and why VHS? A lot of people don't really get that, but I'm just like, I don't know,
it depends on what you're watching.
When you put that in your hand and you feel that little bit of shake, it's a real thing. Do you know what I mean?
I was alive for just the tail end of VHS being a thing, so I still have fond memories of it, but not as much as you do. I would say that.
Yeah, there's a tactile element that excites me, and I find to be very just intriguing. And like I said, staring at the physical media, it's all about the slipcase. Like I've got probably 100 tapes that don't have slipcases, and I think I'm going to actually rip those and get rid of them just to make more space.
Yeah.
For the rare and the intriguing and the advanced. Well, not advanced, but like the rarer tapes. You ever seen that vampire film Vamp, by the way?
Mm-mm.
Oh man, so many great ones. But you say you don't like the vampire. We can do the vampire outliers though, that are like more horrific vampires. I don't like the wussy vampires myself, but it's ironic because like a lot of people view the. We should definitely do a Gary Oldman special. I love that guy.
Oh yes, I agree.
But Bram Stoker's Dracula, man, he got a lot of hate, which is I don't understand at all.
Keanu Reeves got a lot of hate for that.
Keanu Reeves, listen, I think the man's a fine actor, and Winona as well got a lot of hate in that. And I think all three of those people are like really.
Yeah.
Okay, so Keanu Reeves, it's fair to say, is somewhat typecast now.
Yeah.
But it's I'm not going to curse on this, but it's bad A stuff like shooter killer kind of a thing or martial arts. Neither one of those put me off. Yeah. So even if he is typecast, I think he's a fine actor. Winona Ryder, come on, have you seen Stranger Things? I mean, she's amazing. Yeah.